All right, welcome along, team. Thanks for joining me on the group coaching call today. Welcome along to your first one, Riwi. Jade, this is your first one from this perspective, I believe. I ducked upstairs one time when you were visiting Nerida and conducted a group coaching call. And Jess, welcome back. Welcome to 2024. Today's presentation is going to be how I progress your workouts and some of the techniques I utilize to advance that. But before we get too deep into things, the crux of it, why progress the workouts? When should you not progress the workouts? And then finishing off with the different ways that I do go about progressing your workouts for you. Now, before we get too far into it, I'm just going to draw the competition for the Garmin Forerunner 2. I've got 235 written on the screen there. It's definitely a 255. This is a competition that I ran last year. Jess, I believe you're the only person on the call that's got an entry in it. Doesn't mean that you'll necessarily win it. This will go.
He means you won.
Was that Riwi?
I said, yeah, he just won. We all heard him.
Doesn't necessarily mean that she is going to win. So she's got 100 entries in. Jamie got the most entries with 340, followed by Brett, Freetha, and Kelly and Jess, all with 100 entries respectively. Now, I've just got to try and work out how to do a new share. And I can't even see. Let's try that one. The problems I was having on my laptop earlier, bear with me as we jump over. Technology is not my friend. What's on the screen at the moment? Is that still the...
Just you, brother. Just you.
Just me. I can't even escape out of... Here we go. Maybe if I hit that, hit that.
Are you trying to share your screen?
I will in a minute. I'm just trying to get the right screen displayed because we're going to do this draw. There's Zoom. Share screen. And random number generator. So, to determine the winner, the various ticket numbers were on the screen before. So, Jamie is between 1 and 341. Kelly is between 342, 441. Brett between 442 and 641. Jess between 642 and 741. And Freetha 742 to 856. Whatever number this comes up with. 191. So that is going to Jamie. I will get that away to him shortly. Now back into the presentation. So that Garmin, yours, Jamie, well done. Thanks for your efforts last year. But why? Why progress the workouts? The key answer to that is to be better, to be able to swim, bike, run, kayak faster, to swim, bike, kayak, run further, to be more efficient swimming, cycling, running, kayaking, whatever your discipline is. Most of us all want to try and be better than we were last week with our fitness and with our overall health and well-being. So stepping up the overall effort and training load is a good way to advance our fitness to become a better or faster athletes. There's a couple of times where progressing the workouts is not required or not recommended, and that's when we want to try and insert extra recovery into the training block or the overall training periodization. Sometimes we'll include an easy week of training to just allow for that extra recovery, because if we don't recover from the training that we do, we don't get better. All our improvements occur not during the training, but during the recovery from that training. And of course, the main one there is to taper prior to a key event. We don't necessarily need to taper for every event, but just the major ones as part of the build-up. Now, there's a number of different ways that we can progress the workouts. One is by increasing our distance or our duration. So whether we're swimming, cycling, running, kayaking, if we try and go a little bit further, instead of going 5Ks down the road and turning around for a 10K run, go 5.5 and come back and it's 11Ks. It might be that we run out half an hour and then turn around and come back half an hour normally. We can push that to 32.5 and come back, and then we've done 65 minutes running instead of the normal 60 minutes. So we're advancing things, we're progressing the workouts through increasing the distance or duration. Another way of doing that is to spend some more time at a higher intensity. So we might have a set of threshold intervals at level 4. We might do 3x5 of the 3x5 minutes at the level 4 intensity one week. The next week, we might increase that to 3x6 minutes as an example. Training stress score. So every workout has a combination of intensity and duration and how that is relative to our capability. And that will give us our training stress score. And I'll touch on that a little bit later on. But if we generate a workout that gives us a higher total stress from any given workout, then that will advance us and progress things as well. So using the examples above, the 3x5 minutes at level 4 and the 3x6 minutes at level 4, those workouts will give us 58 and 68 for our training stress score as well. Another way of doing that is having less recovery. And I'll touch on the Martin Gabala interval sessions a little bit later on. Some of you have included them in or had them included in your training. I just see it appears we might have a couple more people trying to join us. I'll just add Gareth in. So those two workouts are effectively the same amount of work, but they're just structured slightly differently with less recovery, so making the workout a little bit harder. So when we look at the distance and duration, we can progress, for an example, running for 30 minutes, increasing to 45 minutes over a 4-week period. Means you will have progressed. So week 1, starting off at 30 minutes. Week 2, we do a 35-minute run. Week 4, 40 minutes. And then in the 4th week, we've built up to 45 minutes. That's a nice, steady progression. So spending a bit more time at intensity, there's a couple of ways we can do that. We can do longer repetitions, like the example I just gave before, increasing from 5 minutes, increasing those repetitions up to 6 minutes. Alternatively, we could do more repetitions, doing 4 reps instead of the 3 that I mentioned in the earlier example. So here's a couple of those workouts there, 3x5 minute threshold intervals on the left and 3x6 minute thresholds on the right. 15 minutes of total work at level 4 in the first example, and we've increased that to 18 minutes in the second example. Plus we've got our warm-up, our cool-down, and our rest intervals in between as well. So we get a good amount of work and we're increasing the amount of time at intensity. So if we look at a couple of different progressions, so using the example of the threshold intervals for cycling, week 1, we could start with the 3 by 4 minutes, progress that up to 3 by 5, then 3 by 6, then 3 by 8 minutes at level 4. And so we're increasing our total duration at that higher intensity. If we look at it in a running example, doing 400-meter repetitions, we could do 6 repetitions on the first week, increase to 8 on the second week, 10, and then finally 12 in that fourth week. So we're progressing each of those weeks. Now, I touched on the training stress score before. So it was developed by a guy called Dr. Andy Kogan, who was a researcher with cycling and one of the really pioneers of utilizing power to manage your training. But it's a really good way of measuring how much stress you put your body under, not just riding, but you can also utilize it for running, cycling, swimming, kayaking, range of different things. Now, how they're managed and calculated varies slightly differently from sport to sport, but we need to either have a measurement of your power or an estimation of your power based on some other metrics. Now, don't worry about the detail too much. The software, whether you're on Training Tilt or Training Peaks, Garmin, lots of software will do all that calculation for you. So the TSS takes into account the normalized power. So that's what your power would be if you were riding a flat ride. It takes out a whole lot of the ambiguity and effectively gives us one number to focus on. Similar to average power, but not quite. It's a bit more precise. And then looking at the intensity factor as well as the ride duration. So the intensity factor is how close to your threshold capability were you riding, and how long were you riding. The TSS helps to determine the best combination of workouts and those rest periods. And as I mentioned before, developed by Dr. Andy Kogan, and it rolls both volume and intensity of a session into a single number that represents the total metabolic cost of that workout. So to put that in a bit of perspective, here's utilizing the Martin Gabala intervals that I touched on before. I've got 5 workouts there, 2, 4, 6, 3, and 1. Now you'd think they'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and continue on through the numbering as they get harder and harder. But there's a little bit of variation there. You'll notice that the first one there is 30 minutes long, and it's got a TSS of 26. So Martin Gabala intervals number 2, and then compare that to Martin Gabala number 4, which has a TSS slightly higher, but it's still 30 minutes long. Now, they've both got the same amount of intensity in terms of 150 seconds all up at level 5 plus, 15 by 10 seconds, or 10 repetitions at 15 seconds. The difference comes down to the amount of rest throughout the workout. When we step things up again, a slightly longer workout, a little bit more recovery in there, and the TSS increases, continues a little bit higher, but not much higher, and it's spread out over more space for Martin Gabala 3. You'd see it's split into 2 sets. We've got 5 by 15 seconds at level 5 plus, and then a second set with 5 minutes rest in between. I haven't detailed that 5 minutes rest, but a total of 10 by 15, which is the same as Martin Gabala 4, which is further back, takes less time to do, and has a lower training stress score. And then stepping things up to the 40-minute version, which is Martin Gabala 1. Now, because those intervals are spread further out, there's a lot more recovery in there, but you're spending more time riding, so therefore the training stress score is a little bit higher, and it takes longer to complete. Another way of doing that is having less recovery, which I touched on before. Effectively, you're doing the same amount of work at the higher intensity, but with the reduced rest intervals. So instead of having it split across 2 sets, we now just condense that all into the 1 set of 10 reps. Or another example there is looking at both those 3 by 6 minute threshold sessions. The difference being having 2 minutes rest interval compared to having 1 minute rest interval, and just condensing that whole session a little bit more so you don't get as full a recovery and you're back out running or cycling at that higher intensity with less complete recovery than the previous version. So you're still advancing and progressing the workout. So in summary, the progression displays improvement. It also challenges the body to adapt more. We can do that by adjusting the volume through distance or duration. We can adjust it by the number of repetitions, by making the repetitions longer or having more of them, or by reducing the rest interval, or removing that rest intervals totally between sets, and instead of doing 2 sets of 5 by something, just doing 10. And the final way there is the training stress score, completing or increasing the total training load of that workout. Any questions from anyone?
Hi, Ray. Sorry I was late.
That's
I
right,
just-
Gareth. You were the prompt behind the presentation.
I noticed some details that related to me in here.
Yes.
You may have covered it before I joined, but how do you decide when you're going to step up a workout for us?
Typically, each week we try and advance things from one level, progressing it up, and eventually, depending on your fitness capabilities, we try and cut that back in some way to allow some extra recovery in there. But if things are progressing well, we can expect sort of 3 to 5, sometimes 6 weeks of progression before we drop things back. Or the other option I often do is, instead of cut things back, is change the stimulus totally. So instead of working with having a focus on tempo, changing that focus to threshold or VO2 max to challenge the body in a different way. The old adage that a change is as good as a holiday allows for that different stimulus, and also allows for some form of recovery as well.
Solid answer. Thank you.
Yeah. The one thing I didn't actually touch on here is using the example that you gave in when you sent that message through. So if we jump back to this one here, so progressing from 3 by 5 minute threshold runs. I know down here it's a cycle workout, but that relates to the fact that you were doing 3 by 5 minutes at threshold, wasn't it? Is that the right workout that you were doing?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so we can jump up to 3 by 6 minutes. And another way of doing that is effectively an in-between. We could do 3.5 by 5 minutes by doing those 3 minutes at 3 repetitions, 5 minutes duration, and then effectively add on a 4th repetition, but only having it 2.5 minutes long to progress things as an in-between between these 2 levels, which was the crux of your question, really. But I don't often do half reps, so to speak. But yeah, that is another viable way of increasing the volume and progressing the workout from week to week.
Cool. Makes sense.
Sweet. Any other questions? Okay, we'll do the normal round the room and answer any questions about training or anything in general. How it works, we go through in the order of joining into the call. So Jess, you're first, Riwi, and then Jade, and then Gareth will finish up with you. Once Gareth's had his turn to ask his training related questions, I encourage you all to stay on the call as well after you've had your questions answered, in case someone asks a question that is relevant to you that you hadn't thought of, or that's something that might become relevant in the future if they're a bit further through their training plan and training program. So Jess, over to you.
Well, I've only really just been getting back into it after I had that time off in December from my foot. But now, like, from having the cycling doing mainly cycling and now getting back into the running, it seems like the pace that I'm running at in the same zone is way faster. And I don't know why. Like, is that just from the biking or the rest or something?
So when you say it's way faster, do you mean you're working harder for the same effort that you were before?
Well, like I'm meant to be running between like the 2:15 like to like 2:40 or something. And to get to that, it seems like the pace that I'm running is quicker than I used to. Like it used to be like high fours and now it's like in the 4:20 to 4:30.
Okay, so I'm going to need to look at some of your data actually to frame my head around that. So I'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have a look at the complete picture a little bit more, but I'll be in touch, Jess. I'll just write a note for that.
Like I've been taking it fine. It's just I've just noticed that it seems to be quicker.
Yeah. It could be that you're just more efficient. And that's due to the maintenance of your training whilst you were injured with your foot through the cycling. But I don't want to commit and put money down that is the case. I'll look at some of the other data, heart rate and stuff,
Yeah.
to give you a more complete answer on that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, that's all from me.
All right, Riwi.
Hey team. No, yeah, I'm just learning, Ray. Like that's my first week on the schedule, so I'm still learning how to do my watch and everything, and I need to go into the things and look at it. But I'm a bit of a bush pig, so I'm just muttering it through and then just looking at. But like when I swim, I've got to swim with the tide too, So I'm in the harbour, so when I do the swim, when I do my swims, I've got to. I can't just do it every morning. I've got to see if it's because it's filled with oysters and stuff. If it's too low or too high, or I've got to swim against the current, or it just depends on the tide for me. So, and I've got like where I do the bike when I do ride, like it's on a mountain. It's like on a gravel road because there's like too many logging trucks and stuff like and big trucks around here. Like it's all real windy and real dangerous. So I'm sort of limited, but I just need to go in this and follow the schedule because I've been doing extra too. Like on Thursday, I was like, oh, I'm good. I'll go for a run and do more. But then I was like,
so
today I didn't do anything because I was driving for 6 hours. So
I give a bit of caution around doing too much. I know you're keen and enthusiastic, always have been. But doing too much can leave you fatigued and have a flow-on effect. I'll flick you a couple of previous coaching calls with some brief presentations to have a watch of.
Okay. Thanks, man.
How did you enjoy the velocity class?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah. I think I'm just gonna stick to my own biking though. I think for now, like into that. But like later in the year, when I look at the Ironman, I was like, yeah, I actually enjoyed it and think of that. But I think I'll just stick to what I'm doing for now. But when I look at that Ironman towards the end of the year, yeah, it's definitely something I'll need to with that bigger bike.
Yeah.
Like for this event, I'm only doing 20 Ks bike. So
Sweet. Jade.
Hi everyone. I don't really have any questions.
Good, that's fine.
All good. I just
All right.
step away.
And keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Round to you, Gareth.
I don't know if I've really got any questions about my training at the moment. Everything seems to be going pretty well. Feel like I've got back into running a little bit more than I was before. That's built back up. My swimming's improved, definitely. My cycling's probably at a high as well. So, I guess maybe it'd be time to think about an event. But
Yep.
I think we're coming to the end of the try season now, so it might be a bit hard pressed to find something that suits timing wise.
Oh, there's still what are we come up mid-February. There's still good 6 weeks for you North Islanders. So there's options there. There's Xterra up in Rotorua. I know you've been really enjoying your mountain biking.
I've been a couple of times. I wouldn't say enjoyed. I've
Okay.
come away with more injuries than fitness. um, what's local? Do you know of any?
There's the Barfoot series in Wellington. So if you just Google Wellington Tri Club, they've got a number of events. They usually have one the last weekend of March. So do a Google of that.
Looks like there's the Barefoot Triathlon series as well.
Yep.
All right, I'll have a look into those and message you and let you know if any of the dates work.
Yeah, perfect.
That's all. Yeah, training's good, so I don't really have any questions.
Sweet. Sounds good. Back open to everyone. Any other questions popped up?
Nah.
Sweet. Well, thanks for joining us on the coaching call this week, team. First one for 2024. A little bit behind the ball. So we'll try and do another one next weekend. I'm away this week tramping the Milford track. So I will be out of coverage for a couple of days or 3 days. So feel free to send me a message. But just be aware that you might have a couple of days before I reply to it. You can always post into the Facebook VIP group, and other members may take the opportunity to reply to you in my absence, and then I can add a further reply on my return. All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time.
Hey guys.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Cheers,
Thanks,
Jade.
Ray. Have a good night. See ya.
Yeah.
Same to you, Gareth.